Welcome back to my crafty channel. It's Paula here, and today is week 7 of our 12-week countdown for Christmas. I can't believe we're already at week 7. So this week we're going to look at how to create beautiful looking cards very quickly. So this lovely little set has been put together. It probably took me 10 minutes maximum to put these together because there's a little trick around doing it. So some of you may have seen this little trick before, but I'm going to show you how you can transform a piece of card that is 8 inches by 10.5 inches into 4 lovely card bases. So let me just show you what it will look like when we get started. So we're going to take our sheet and we're going to divide it into our 4 cards. So our cards are generally 4.25 by 5.5. So I tend to take them in that little bit, that 1/4 inch in, and do a mat behind it. So I instead make the card front 4 inches by 5.25. So at 4 inches by 5.25, we need an 8 inch by 10.5 inch sheet to be able to cater for all 4. Okay, so I'm going to take a sheet like this and I am going to do some fun stamping. And where we do our stamping is on the border of where we're going to cut the cards. So as you can see here, I've prepared one in advance where I have done some stamping down the center of the big sheet and across the center sideways as well. And you will see when I lay these on top where the stamping came from. So that was the border here on this card. And we can do the same with all these other cards. And you can just see how all those cards were created with that crossed stamping. So that's a really fun idea. It's nice and easy, and it's actually really fun to choose a stamp set, maybe one you haven't used a lot of, and use that as your theme for creating your background for your cards. Now I just want to show you before I start what I have done in terms of scrapbooking. So I was at a retreat in the weekend that I was running. I showed this technique to the ladies and they loved it, and they said, well, could we extend it to a scrapbooking page? So I took that challenge on and I created this really fun piece here. So once again, I have gone with the idea of stamping around the edge. You could just imagine this is one of 4 sheets of paper if you wanted to, and that was my stamping through the center, coming down here. And then I've actually multi-stamped another stamp in the image on the side to create a oversized Christmas tree. I wanted to go for a vintage look, so I took a sheet which is actually the same as what we're going to use today, which is this one here. On this side it's darker and it's called Shortbread. I took that as my base and I did a lot of inking and distressing to create that slightly more oldie worldy look. So the stamp set that we used for both of these examples is this really lovely winter stamp set which is in our annual core book. So it is the Merriest Season, it's called, and it goes really well with our winter seasonal scrapbooking paper. So we've got that stamp. Then I also brought in the background elements stamp. Now I actually wanted to, and in this particular one I used a different stamp, and this one here is someone's I borrowed in the weekend, and this one's got the musical notes which I absolutely adore. And that is still in our seasonal catalogue here. And it is called Harmonious Patterns Stamp Set. So I used the notes on one and I used the dots on another. Now I don't actually own that stamp set, so I looked into my stash, and of course the background elements, which is our generic stamp in the core book, has got some of these more splattery elements as well in there. So I used that for the background of this here, similar kind of effect. Now I also drew in a few extra stamp sets. So as I said, I used a Christmas tree. This is a retired set. I used this Christmas tree to create all the little branches of my enlarged tree. And I also pulled in the very cute, where's it gone, train set. Now love this set. So you can see my little vintage train along the bottom. I stamped it immediately onto the background because I want it to feel like a vintage paper in the background, but it does come with a thin cut. So you can stamp onto separate pieces and have these highlighted, pulled out, whatever you wanted to use it for. Very cute set, this one. It is called Holiday Express, and it's got some really cute little words around as well that you can add to make it quite decorative. So I drew on all those stamps, and now the lucky people that are coming along to my holiday memories crop, my final weekend crop of the year, and that's on the 27th of November. you will be able to recreate this page if you wish. This will be one of the projects on offer. So if you want to have a little go with that, I will show you how to do that at the time. Today, we're just going to run through how to put together these really simple little series of cards in a theme. So stay tuned and I will pull my bits and pieces together and we will work it out. So here we are with the piece that we're going to work with and our sample example beside us. I'm going to work with the Mist, Pine and Toffee inks primarily, and I'm going to actually just do a design with our stamp of the month. So let's just get started first of all by dividing up this sheet. And now I tend to just pull on a ruler and a pencil and divide it up very lightly so I can have some guidelines. So we are doing it along at 4 inches along, which is in this case at 8 inches, and we're going to do it at 5 1/4 inches up. So that just gives me a starting point to work with. I've got some lines drawn on there. Then we're going to take our stamps, and I typically start with one of the larger stamps. I'm going to start with our very big snowflake mandala. Peel that off, and I'm going to, oops, we've got a little one attached, and I'm going to need a big block for this to be able to stamp it well. Well, when you're putting a big stamp on a big block, it's a good idea to actually roll it on so that you don't get too many air bubbles sitting in the back, because that will spoil the image that you're going to achieve. So I'm going to take the Pine ink and start off by stamping this right in the center. I did move that slightly, and that's not going to be the best image. Thankfully, this is very much an organic effect. So overall, I don't think this is going to matter. Now, unfortunately, when I work on this particular table, it's a very bendy table, so you don't get the best stamp image. I much prefer to work on my bench where it's nice and solid. So I'll just be a little bit careful here. And I'm just going to put another one over to the side. And that just gives us a little background to work with. Now let's see, I might switch to the Mist ink and I might pull out the next sized stamp, which is this very sweet one here. Still quite a large snowflake, so I'll just be careful I don't get any bubbles on it. Switch over my inks. And we're just going to randomly stamp this. Now I could go exactly in the middle. In fact, I think I will with this. This one is, because they're such large images, you kind of need to be a little bit more symmetrical with it. When I went with the smaller stamps, you could just stamp wherever you liked, which is another cool, fun effect with it. So we're getting a little bit of a mess all created here, but I'm sure it's going to work out. I have faith. So now we're going to go down to our smallest little snowflake. There's a little one on here too. Grab a small block for that, and I'm going to bring in Toffee because it's kind of got that hint of a gold element to it. I'm going to stamp all over the place with this one. Now, because these are all open stamps, I would actually suggest, if I wasn't working here in front of the camera, to bring in a little bit of gold embossed images. And in fact, I may just pause the camera and do that because I think it's going to really add to the effect. So I've just popped those all randomly around, and I will come back with a few gold embossed as well. So as you can see in the light, I have stamped all randomly with that little snowflake and used gold embossing as well to add a bit of texture. Now, because this is quite vintagey, I've actually pulled out one more stamp. Now this is one I got in my album retreat. It's called All I Want for Christmas, and it's a 2-series stamp. It's only available through the album retreat, and I thought it would be quite fun to bring in a few of these really iconic images that are quite Christmassy but from a vintage angle. So I've got the stag head here, and I think I'll stick to the Toffee with the stag. So we'll pull him in. Just thinking about the way I might use this card. I'll put him on an angle there, and I might do that could be a sideways, this could be an upright card, so therefore I might do him up there. Now that's a couple of images. I might pull out also the Scarlet ink and do some candy apple. There's candy canes, not candy apple. Candy canes in here. which is very fun. And I might just do one other little image I saw on there, which was the toy soldier, which he looks pretty cool. And I'm thinking I might pull in a bit more of a bluey shade for this one. So maybe the old Harbour ink, because it is another outline stamp. And we just want it to kind of show up a little bit in our image. Let's just put them over here for this one. And let's put let's think about this one. Maybe a pie on this one. And a little bit of him over here as well. Just for fun. This is what is so neat about this technique. You can just have a bit of fun with your stamp sets. So I'm going to now cut this up, and I'm going to cut exactly where I did my lines. It is possible to score instead of drawing pencil lines. However, I like to just do the pencil lines because I like it to be a little bit flat when I am cutting. I don't like to have to try and line up to a very specific point. So I just use a very light pencil instead. So I have now created some bases for a card. To finish this off for a bit more of a distressed effect, I'm going to use my toffee ink, and I'm just going to go around the edges and do some distressing this way as well. Just really, really cool. And I'm going to be relatively rough and heavy-handed. I'm not going to be too precise with this. So I am getting kind of splotchiness coming in. I'm just going to go a bit random through it as well. And I can do the same on a whole lot of them. So I'll just do a couple for now, just to show you what I'm up to. And as I say, this is not a precise movement. If it was precise, I'd have it down on the flat, and I'd be being a little bit more careful. But our toffee ink is a really good shade for that antique effect. Again, I'll just go around the edges with this one. And we can also consider popping in a sentiment at this point. So I think we might have this one upright, and this one can go either way. I think we might put this one as an upright as well. So let's just do that. We'll grab in our sentiments from the stamp of the month. There's some really lovely ones in here. Wishing you a joyful Christmas sounds pretty good. So I'll grab that one in, and I'm actually quite liking that Harbour ink on here. You could do Harbour or Pine at this point. I think I'll stick to the Harbour. Pop that in there. And we'll do a Season's Greetings on the other one. And maybe that one I will do Pine with it. So we'll go back to my Pine. We'll pop in Season's Greetings. Okay, so now to finish these off, I obviously need to pop them onto a card base, but I also want to pull in my metallic markers. So I've pulled in first of all the gold metallic marker that is 3mm. There's 3 different ones, and this is the center one, and I'm literally just going to do some sort of bauble shapes all the way through to add more sparkle and shine to this card. So when it catches the light, you've got this really nice shine going on. Now I could go around the edge of this one too with my markers, and I have got 2 other sorts to choose from. So I have got a really wide one, so I could be going around the edges like this with it, and I have got a really fine one, 0.7mm, which allows me to go a bit more precisely, which is what I think I might do on this card. So I'll just get a card base, and these are our standard card bases from the value pack. So I'm just going to grab a card base, pop this one on with some tape runner. Now that white is showing up quite a bit, so I actually think at this point I'm also going to just distress the edge of this as well, just with what was left on my sponge, so it's just a soft effect. And then I'm going to pull in my little marker, and I could do this very precisely with a ruler, which is actually what I did with the original cards I showed you. Oh, I've got stuff everywhere now. But this time I'm just going to do it freehand and just give it a little bit of an organic shine. Now I do love these metallic markers. I haven't had metallic markers that are so juicy. These are kind of like paint markers. They're not really for journaling with. So you will find if you're trying to have a continuous line of writing, it may come and go a bit, the ink, because they're more like that sort of a paint effect. But for this type of thing, they are gorgeous, and they add another little element of shine in there as well. So what do you think? I think that is rather gorgeous. I just need a couple of gems to finish, and I have got a fun card. So if you go back to what we had originally, we had quite a messy looking piece that came a bit like this. Move that up a bit like that. And I'm just splitting them apart and creating my own card from them. Pretty cool. And as I say, if you're keen to find out how to make a little bit more of a scrapbooking effect, all with cardstock, come along to my final weekend crop on Sunday the 27th of November, and you'll get the opportunity to give this one a go as well. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you feel a little bit inspired to get out some of your stamp sets and have a play. Talk to you soon. Cheers, bye.